It's Tuesday, Tuesday afternoon, a little past 1:15, a little bit later than usual. I'm also working online here. Um, and so we'll try to make it a shorter session again today. I mentioned before that my goal is to keep it at around the half hour mark, 15 minutes to half hour, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. Um, of course, when I have some great friends pop in and ready to talk, I'm pulling stuff up, which is why I'm working on the computer and I seem distracted. Um, yeah, so when I have some great friends pop in and we have great discussions, like yesterday, when Destiny Forever Walks PhD pops in, and Duncan Walsh Fitness Motivation stopped in and told us about the addition of a mother cat and two kittens to his family, which is always exciting news. What I wanted to do was, which is why I'm distracted, um, was to talk about again the yamas and the niyamas, the ethical restraints and personal observances of um, yoga. This is why I'm distracted. The I always get bogged down when we talk about this in one in particular or the other. Uh, Usually, I don't get very far off the first one, ahimsa. For me, it's the first restraint. Remember, a restraint, it's framed in the negative in order so that the opposite can grow. So when we have non-harming or non-violence, it's so the opposite, so that peace can grow. Um, Often mistaken as pacifism. There's absolutely, when it's practiced, there's absolutely nothing passive about practicing non-harmfulness. We really can't consider some of the great practitioners, some of the great yogis, to be um, passive. Remember, the 8 limbs were outlined, and or one of the branches of which the 8 limbs comes from, which is Raja Yoga, outlined in the Bhagavad Gita, which many take as a war epic. The truth is, it's doing your very best not to harm, but at the same time, knowing that action has to take place. It's doing your very best to not harm, including yourself. Let's not spend too much time with that one, because as I mentioned, I always do. The reason why these are so important is because without them, and without what follows after the physical practice of yoga, without them, it's just a fitness class, and we have that all over the world. You can't walk down any city street without bumping into a yoga studio connected to a Starbucks. And it's a great exercise, great for fitness, great for flexibility and mobility. But it's not the end point of yoga. As a matter of fact, as outlined in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, um, the asanas are mainly to be used to improve our seat. Asana actually means seat, for sitting meditation. So we can sit longer, greater periods of time, and benefit from the deep practice of meditation, of yoga. So with the 8 limbs of yoga, We have the yamas and the niyamas. Again, ethical restraints, personal observances. Then we have the asanas, which is taking care of the body, purifying the body. And then we have, I'm going to keep moving, pranayama, which is working with our subtle energy. Sorry. I'm not as distracted as I look. I want some handy references up here as we talk. Pranayama, again, being the working with our subtle energy system. Prana meaning energy, life force. Without it, we aren't. Simple as that. It is much deeper than the breath. The breath is the vehicle of its transport. But again, it's the subtle nature of any energy that animates matter, that makes life life. The amount of prana in an object separates a rock from a squirrel. Each has prana, varying degrees. And then we have withdrawing of the senses. Then we have one-pointed concentration, going into meditation, going into that deepest aspect of meditation, samadhi, where we are literally absorbed within the topic of our meditation. With that, we see the collapse of the observer and simply being the observed. That's it. That's all there is. Observed and observer, one thing. So that's the 8 limbs. The first 2 limbs are the ethical restraints and the personal observances. And some might argue that they're the most important of all. If you only practice those 2, you would have a completely fulfilled life. They could possibly lead you all the way to awakening, all the way to enlightenment, all the way to samadhi itself. And the reason being, when we practice again, the opposite grows. So when we practice when we practice satya, truthfulness, then all we experience is truth. Because there is no opposite to that. If you don't lie, everything you say is true. This isn't a matter of belief. That's a loophole that some people, the George Costanza loophole. If you believe it, it's not a lie. Truth is truth across the board. It's not a matter of belief. Beliefs are a fluctuation of energy within the truth, but they're not the truth. Some might say that truth is that which remains when everything else moves. I don't know. I think that is just a description, not the actuality. So I don't know that it serves us to keep adding in descriptions. There's the Hebrew tradition of saying God is, and then leaving the rest blank, because anything else is just a mere description and not the actuality of the experience of God. We can substitute the word God with truth. Truth is, anything we say after is just going to be a description of the truth and not truth itself. So it's a practice on a very subtle level. It's not about just lying. It is about looking deeply, deeply in what's true and how we approach it, what we say, how we think, how we treat others. Fairly often, I start to slip into some political discourse, and the importance being that the political candidates that we support, do they practice any of these virtues? Do they practice non-harmfulness? that might be a tough thing for a leader to do, because we think um, you have to defend your country, you have to defend the nation, um, you have to enforce laws. So how can you practice non-harmfulness? And again, by remembering that it's a practice. That it's no different than saying, I'm a practicing Christian, and virtually every single politician says that. Western politicians, certainly almost every single American politician says that they're a practicing Christian. However, if you go by the Sermon on the Mount, by the Beatitudes, are they practicing that? It's the same with yoga. It's the same with the yamas. Practicing non-harmfulness doesn't mean that you don't have to enforce laws. It means that you're doing your best to make sure that the least amount of harm is caused. And you practice that for yourself, you practice that for others, you practice that across the board for every living species. Then we get to Satya, truthfulness. Do we support any candidate that is living that is telling the truth? Not hedging, not, saying the same thing over and over again and expecting us to finally buy it. Oh, okay. He didn't understand what you were saying the first time you said it, but now that you said it the 67th time, now I'm starting to get it. The truth is, they would rather use rhetoric than to tell the truth. So they go on and on and on without actually saying anything of substance whatsoever. Virtually every single politician. I am not anti-politician at all. What I want is a candidate that lives the ethics of their beliefs to the best that they're capable of doing. So when we go to these deeper levels again and we say truthfulness, do we tell ourselves the truth? Do we look at a political candidate? Do we look at anyone in the news media and TV, whatever, anyone that we admire? And do we tell ourselves the truth about them? It's not just a matter of are they telling the truth, but are we telling the truth about them, or are we deceiving ourselves? Are we deceiving ourselves by saying, well, yeah, maybe they're saying this, but what they really mean? We can't excuse other people's behaviors. We can't excuse our own behavior, our own thinking, especially if we want to live by the principles that I'm describing here, which are from yoga and also closely related to Buddhist thought, as well as Taoist thinking, as well as tenets of Christianity. Our friend Destiny Forever Walks, PhD, is here, and she says, hello Eric, happy Tuesday, and blessings to you. How are you today? I am doing pretty well, actually. Not bad at all. And I hope you are as well. I'm talking some of the ethical points of yoga that are often overlooked because yoga has basically come to be known, even in India to a large extent, just the physical postures, and not that it's a complete system of living, a spiritual path of being involved in the world. It's not just for renunciants, it's for people who are truly engaged in the world. And sort of comparing and contrasting with some of the tenets of Christianity. I had mentioned earlier that I always get bogged down in talking about ahimsa, nonviolence, and I'm trying to move on from them, but I always get stuck in ahimsa for a reason. It's a deep, deep practice in and of itself. If you only practice that, I think you would be practicing the complete path of yoga, and you'd be practicing the complete path of honest Christianity, the true teachings of Jesus. When asked how often do you forgive, what was Jesus' answer? 70 times 7 or 7 times 70, which basically means infinite forgiveness. We don't put a time frame or X amount. I will forgive you this amount of times, and if you keep doing it, then I'm not. There's a difference between forgiveness and letting people harm you, letting people walk all over you. When you really enter this state of awareness, you can forgive, but you also have that sense of discernment so that you're no longer a victim. Once you forgive, you're free, completely free of that person. So you can't be, if you truly forgive, you can't be a victim, because you can walk away, because those ties that bind you to any person or situation are gone. You're free, liberated. Destiny says that all is well with me. Thanks for asking. Certainly. And I'm glad to hear that everything is doing okay with you. So for me, one of the great things about Christianity is that it's steeped in forgiveness. That forgiveness is, some of the last living words of Jesus on the cross is, "Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do." He's asking for forgiveness. He's basically asking for them to be liberated from their ignorance. They know not what they do, which corresponds to yoga psychology and vidya, which means simply not knowing. We're all caught in that ignorance. We don't know what we don't know, which means that we're walking around in this state of thinking that we're perpetually right when we don't even have all the information at hand. Destiny says that it is so absolutely important that we forgive ourselves and others in order for us to heal. And healing is another way of saying being free. When you're healed, when you're truly healed of cancer, it's gone. It means you're healed of cancer. It's not in remission. You're healed. It's gone. That means you're free, cancer free. When you forgive someone, and as Destiny said, in order to heal, it means you're free of that situation. Again, you're liberated. You've reclaimed your own energy. This is why breath work is also so important in forgiveness. You can do a forgiveness ritual using a pranayama, a breathing technique, and a ritual of whatever. Writing a letter of forgiveness and burning it. Whatever it is, that symbolizes for you that this is gone, and from this moment forward, I'm moving forward, reclaiming my energy in order to live. And to fully live in the present moment means I have to be free of those painful events in the past. It doesn't mean that you open yourself up for abuse once again, because, again, true forgiveness gives you wisdom and gives you discernment so that you see it now. You've learned from that. You're free of the karma of that situation. And now you go forward. Continue on with life. One of my favorite lines from A Course in Miracles, which is a psycho-spiritual text, is the only lesson of the cross is that we can all survive our own crucifixion. That's the lesson of the cross. I compare the ethical points of yoga to the Beatitudes, Sermon of the Mount, in Christianity, as well as the discourses of the Buddha in his Eightfold Path. Again, with the yamas and niyamas, forgiveness in and of itself isn't mentioned, but that's because if you're practicing the five, the non-harming, the truthfulness, the non-stealing, the right use of energy, the non-hoarding, Forgiveness is automatically included in all that, because if you're seeing things truthfully, you know that you have to forgive. If you're not forgiving, you're literally stealing from yourself. You're stealing your peace of mind. You're robbing yourself of that peace, as well as you're not being honest with yourself. It's also the not holding any kind of hurt, no matter how deep it is also is not the right use of energy, which is the fourth of the yamas. None of this means it's wrong. It just means, is it serving you? Is it moving you forward on the path of life? Or is it robbing you of your energy? Is it robbing you of your own peace of mind? Destiny says that Jesus said, forgive, for they know not what they do. We must do the same. For many people are not consciously aware of the wrong they do or have done. Beautifully said. And again, that corresponds directly with yoga psychology, when they define suffering. Three things. There's aversion, meaning we don't want what is present in our life. We push it away. Just natural. No one wants pain. No one wants sorrow. No one wants grief. However, they happen. They occur. And they don't change until we can say, that's what's here. That's what's in the present moment. My grief is here. If I push it away, I just bury it deep within the cells of my body, and it's acted out in another way. It's acted out in disease, in illness. Remember, disease, dis-ease. Excuse me, guys. And then attraction. We're always chasing after something. It's not that desire is bad. It's that we're never truly satisfied, so we keep going after more and more. It's never enough to have $1 when we can have $2, when we can have $5, when we can have $1 million. Look at the people who keep billionaires. Imagine a billionaire, more than $1 billion. That's what makes a billionaire. And yet doing so little to help others. I'm not saying anyone in particular, but what I'm saying is, if you have enough money that you could literally feed every starving person in the world, why aren't you doing that? How much more does one person or family actually need? And yet, the way they keep score is to just keep accumulating more and more and more. They're suffering. They're suffering in a different way than the starving person, but they are suffering. The reason all this happens is because of ignorance. They know not what they do, as Destiny pointed out. That's the third yogic psychological realm of suffering, is ignorance. Not knowing that we're caught in these patterns of aversion and attraction, that we're chasing after status symbols, or we're pushing away what's in the present moment. And so we suffer. Not only do we suffer, but we cause suffering where we go. Again, it blows my mind to think, having billions of dollars and having anyone needing anything in the world, the things that you could do, and yet to treat it as a way of keeping score. To send out space shuttles for your friends to take a ride in, that uses precious resources for a joyride in space. So when you practice yoga, you see this. You see the ignorance. And you forgive. And then you want to do good. You want to help. You want to serve. Living a life of service, it's really what it's all about. If you're not living a life of service, you've yet to truly start living. That doesn't mean that you're going to be the next Gandhi. Doesn't mean you're going to be the next Dr. Martin Luther King. Doesn't mean you're going to be the next whatever. It means that you're going to be the best you. You're going to serve the world in your own unique fashion. And it could be something as simple as Duncan Walsh adopting 3 cats because the 2 little kittens that he originally were going to get that needed help were still attached to their mother. That's service. Our friend Thomas is here. Hey Thomas, how are you? It's been a pleasure watching your rededication to what you're doing. You know what? Being of service is, we often think, it's these grand acts of doing things in the world. But we have to include ourselves because as often mentioned in conversations with our friend Destiny, we know that we are the universe. We know that the universe is us. We know that we are the world, not to quote the famous song from the 1980s. Being of service to yourself means sometimes you do your burpees when it's dark outside. When you're of service to yourself, you're of service to other people. Thomas says that he is fantastic. Best he's been in a long time. Happy to hear that. If you are making a video of you doing burpees in the dark to keep yourself accountable, somebody, somewhere, sometime is going to see that and think, you know what? I didn't do my writing today. I didn't go for a walk today. I didn't help my neighbor today. I didn't smile at someone today. I didn't hold myself accountable today, and I need to. These little things mean everything, and yet we don't realize them. Again, it's the Maharishi effect. The Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, founder of Transcendental Meditation, saying that, if 1% of any given population meditates, then the whole percentage of that area benefits from the act of meditation. Being of service is meditating. Being of service is saying prayer, doing your meditation, loving kindness meditation. That includes the whole world. Thomas says, I thank you both for your services. Last year was Launchpad that you all built for me. Man, it's just a blessing to be part of the community. So we're all giving back continuously. Every video is a means of giving back. The people that helped me, inspired me. Again, what a simple thing to do. Do burpees every day, but to think, hey, maybe somewhere somebody might need a little hand and accountability, might see me do some 6 counts with a hurting back and think, you know what, I'm feeling pretty good. I have no excuses not to do however many burpees I want to do. Thomas says simplicity is beautiful. It certainly is. And I always, whenever I think simplicity and the simplicity of living simple lifestyle, I always go to Thoreau's letter to Emerson when he said, when he admonished Emerson to simplify, simplify, simplify. And Emerson wrote back and said, I think one simplify would suffice. There's so many means that we can simplify things that we sort of skip over. And that goes back to the very last, the yamas, the ethical restraints in yoga, which is non-greed, non-hoarding, which simply means simplify. We have what we need. Does that mean we can't have anything extra or something as a backup? Not at all. But it means we don't have excess of things that we don't enjoy, that we don't even look at, and yet we refuse to give away. It means that we don't keep grabbing hold of more for the sake of having more, especially when that means others may be doing without. This is why the plant-based diet, and I'm not saying vegan, I'm not saying vegetarian, but plant-based, meaning eating more plants, because the vast majority of grains that are grown in one state produces enough grain to feed every starving person in the world, pretty much. A large percentage of them, at the very least. And yet, most of it goes to feed cattle so that very few people can eat the way they enjoy eating. So I'm not saying don't eat meat. I'm not saying give up meat. But if we thought about what was on our plate, and we thought, do I need a double bacon, double cheeseburger? Do I need the meat lover's pizza? You know, when we think in terms of simplicity, do we need that? Truthfully, do we even want it? Do you enjoy double bacon? Maybe that's a bad example, because I know some people really love their bacon. But when you start practicing all of these together, you start having that discernment, and then you start thinking, how can I simplify my life to get that bare nature enjoyment? And by bare nature, I don't mean, that it's the bare minimum of enjoyment. It means that the very bareness itself, life itself, is enough. The simplicity of a breath can give you as much joy as $1 billion. Some people say that simply isn't true. Take away $1 billion from a billionaire. Take away one breath from you. Take away your breath, see how long you last. Take away $1 billion, see how long they last. Thomas said that made me chuckle. One will suffice. Yeah, every time I think of that story, it makes me laugh. And of course, I can always enjoy Emerson as well as Thoreau. Actually, all of the transcendentalists of that era of the early 1800s of America, in that one specific area, just around the Concord, Massachusetts area. Simplify. Thoreau went to a cabin in the woods, Walden, lived his life. Thomas said, something I like to consider is the fact that we are on a rock hurtling through space, and if you close your eyes and imagine that you can experience exhilaration. The literal definition of a joyride, already there, already experiencing it. That's a great metaphor, Thomas. I mean, literally, we're being taken for a ride through space itself, constantly, continuously. We're embraced by the sky. Put your hand up. Is there any place where the universe stops when it meets your hand? Is there anywhere that your hand stops when it meets the universe? Or is it just one thing? A reemergence of self into a greater self. Thomas says, Joyride, that's my neighbor's cat's name. I've had my adopted cats for maybe 1.5 years now, and I've yet to name them. I have Black Cat and the other Black Cat, which of course is interchangeable. Sometimes the Black Cat becomes the other Black Cat, and sometimes the other Black Cat becomes the Black Cat. I always figured, cats have their own identity, and don't kitty and cat. Yeah, they. What happens if my cat has this name, this self-description in its cat head of, my name is Slayer of Mice, chaser of squirrels, eater of whatever. And here I am going, come here, Muffin. It would be a bit of an insult, wouldn't it? And far be it from me to insult my cats. Also, aside from burpees and ultra running, and my writing and my yoga, as Mocha will attest to, I can be extremely lazy at times. Thomas says, I'm convinced that Max Peppermint is a true cat, and Licorice is a human in a cat's body. Wouldn't argue. It's funny, the descriptions that we have, speaking of cats and names, confusing our descriptions with the truth. And being convinced, as Destiny pointed out, not knowing what they do. Famous words on the cross. And that applies to all of us. We simply don't know, and worse off, we don't know that we don't know. And yet we have the smug mentality of believing just because we think it, just because we believe it, it has to be true. Even though we have trillions of thoughts fluctuating through the mind at any given moment. And that's all they are, energetic patterns. Some stick, most don't. And yet the ones that stick, we insist that they're true because for some reason, they stick around. Yoga is the art, going back to bare essence. Yoga is the art of seeing the bare essence of the world, of seeing that there's the reality and the energy that moves through reality. Not saying that they are separate things, they are aspects appearing within this one reality. And yet an aspect isn't the entirety of the whole, it's just an appearance. Appearances come and go. That's a thought. Thoughts come, thoughts go. I absolutely love Brian Katie's work. She is an author, and she has an easy way of self-inquiry. Simply asking ourselves, is this true? Whatever it is, whatever thought, whatever belief, whatever hurt, whatever grief, whatever grievance, is this true? And then can I absolutely know for certain that this is true? Meaning without a shadow of a doubt. Because if you can put a little bit of doubt in there, if you can just say, I don't know, maybe it isn't true, you're free. And then, what would happen if you didn't have that thought or that belief? And the last one is, who would you be if you didn't have that thought? You can take an example of, stage fright. I'm always afraid when I get in front of a camera and I start to talk. Is that always true? Can I absolutely know for certain? Has there ever been a time when I've talked and it wasn't true? And if I say, who would I be if I didn't have that belief? I would be someone who could freely talk in front of a camera. Express myself, be open, be free. Destiny says from his book, The Simplicity of Self-Healing, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Albert Einstein. Yes. Einstein also said nothing changes until something moves. Let's see. Destiny says, like Thomas Fahey said, simplicity is beautiful. I do agree with you. And Thomas says, good quote to think on, Destiny. We need to take ourselves to unfamiliar and uncertain places for new knowledge experiences, which is in Zen, particularly Korean Zen, they call it the don't know mind. And as been pointed out, you may as well start with a don't know mind, because that's where we're going to end up. We simply don't know. We have stories, we have mystery. Stories are just a description of mystery. Mystery remains. And that's a good thing, because it means we're always exploring. Instead of considering ourselves seekers after truth, we're just explorers of what's true right now. So, all right, guys, it is going on 41 minutes, and I went a little bit longer. And as I said, the goal is maybe to talk for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, unless I have some good friends pop in and that conversation takes on such a wonderful energy when Destiny and Thomas and Duncan and Hybrid Jim, all of them, when they all pop in, it's just, I can feel the difference. It's not just me talking. It becomes that true art of conversation with good friends who all have these wonderful thoughts and inspiration that they're sharing. Then the conversation becomes worth something. So I appreciate you guys, and I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'll be back in the morning for some burpees. I look forward to seeing what everyone else shares. I look forward to more burpees from Thomas. I look forward to some treadmill dancing from Destiny. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Thomas says, happy I got in today. Amazing how much the conversation resonates with my thoughts and words from early in the day. This is a good space. Much thanks. Thank you, because you're adding to it a great deal. Destiny says, thanks, Eric. I enjoyed the conversation and discussion. Blessings to you, and see you later. Take care, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.